Hi, here we are again. This video was requested by a fellow named Dougie. Sorry, Dougie, I couldn't use your whole name, but this was a good idea to compare the Weatherby Mark V and the Weatherby Vanguard. And actually, because of your request, I learned a lot. So hopefully I can share that with you. As you can see on the table, I've disassembled both rifles. This is the best way to find out what's going on with each one. And I'll just walk you through the comparison. So this is the Weatherby Mark V. You can see the barrel is fluted. This model happens to be in 338 Lapua, so they installed this muzzle brake. I fired this gun at the range. The 338 Lapua is definitely not a 243, but this was not difficult to use at all and fire. The recoil's completely bearable, about like a 30-06. Underneath the Mark V is the Vanguard. This Vanguard I purchased because it's in 240 Weatherby Magnum, which is quite a unique cartridge. Actually, the case is completely unique and not based on any other case. I'll draw to your attention the triggers. You have a typical trigger housing on the Mark V and a similar housing, although it's not as large, on the Vanguard. The receivers obviously are steel. The Mark V has to be larger for the Lapua cartridge. The Recoil Lugs, I'm always drawing this to everybody's attention. The Mark V has a proper significant recoil lug, and the Vanguard does as well. This is not a makeshift lug. It's like a tradition. You could look at a Mauser, which is kind of the sounding board, and that's an excellent lug. The triggers are excellent, as most modern triggers are. The barrel on the 240 Weatherby is obviously a little shorter than on the Lapua. You could go to the floor plates. There's not much to talk about. Both of the floor plates are made out of aluminum. The 338 Lapua on the Mark V action has this Weatherby insignia, and the Vanguard does not have the Weatherby insignia. As a few people have pointed out to me, some of them have firm opinions that the Vanguard is not a Weatherby rifle, and I understand that opinion. On the other hand, it was selected by Weatherby. It's sold under the name Weatherby. So even though it's a Howa rifle, I think if they say it's a Weatherby, we probably have to accept that they must really like this rifle. And actually, so do I. And you'll see in a minute or two that now we've looked at the actions. We've looked at the floor plates. Here are the magazine boxes. I didn't want to be anything but transparent, so you can see what's what. These are sheet metal, folded sheet metal, and both, how would you say the one is superior to the other? Then the stocks. This is the Weatherby Mark V 338 Lapua stock, and I'm glad that I have a 338 Lapua because that round is a significant round. I mean, it's not a 460 Weatherby, but this has to be a strong stock. And you can see what they did. They put into the stock an aluminum bedding block, and you can see some of the bedding material at the recoil lug. As I mentioned in several videos, when this action recoils in this stock, there must be no movement whatsoever. The action cannot gain any momentum. It must be rigid and one with the stock, or there's going to be trouble. So this is an intelligent way of making sure that everything is level, square, and absolutely bank vault solid, as you would expect from a Weatherby Mark V. And here's the Vanguard stock, and this is typical, a typical synthetic stock. They can get the tolerances so close. There's no hand fitting that I know of, and I don't see any bedding material at all. No, nothing. Sometimes they'll put some drop of something, but not this time. So they must be confident that those surfaces are perfect. So what does this all boil down to then? We've got synthetic stocks, we've got an aluminum bedding block, we've got a floor plate, we've got another floor plate, and the Vanguard, they work fine. You can see how the Vanguard comes apart. No problems, no issues. There's a button on the Mark V. The reason this isn't popping down is, of course, there are no cartridges pushing them down. So then the question is, why is the Mark V significantly more expensive than the Vanguard? And the answer is in the details of the action. And actually, I had a conversation just before filming. So this is the Weatherby Mark V bolt. And you can see what Roy Weatherby decided to do. He wanted a smooth action. And one of the problems with putting bolt lugs at the front of any action, and this is true of Mausers as well, is these lugs have to ride through the receiver, pick up, along with the bolt face, a cartridge, lock, and be fired, and so on. But the lugs are outside of the bolt body. They're bigger. So what Roy Weatherby decided to do, and I'm sure his son can confirm this, is he recessed the lugs. So the bolt body is larger than the lugs. It's quite clear. And he decided to make 9 locking lugs. Now, for a gun community that's used to 2 lugs, 9 sounds a lot better. So what I did is I kind of looked at these lugs. This surface here, and here, and here, and multiplied that, 9 times. That tiny little surface right here. That's what holds a Weatherby Mark V shut. Here's the extractor, and here's the plunger ejector in the bolt face. Then you go to the Vanguard, and there are not 9 lugs. There are 2 lugs, and it's this surface here and here that prevents this bolt from flying backwards and hitting you in the head when you fire a cartridge. That's how these actions all work. So I didn't take the time to measure the surface area of this tiny surface of each of these, and they're not all the same size. These are quite small, those are slightly larger, and they put an angle here so that when you chamber, the bolt pulls itself into position. So first of all, you have to assume that the machining is so perfect that all of these make contact with their respective mortises in the receiver ring. And I'm assuming that's correct. So if they all 9 make contact, then you multiply this surface area, roughly speaking, times 9. And hopefully, and probably, it's greater than this surface area, which I'll hold up again on the Vanguard. This is easier to calculate, which I did. Again, I didn't do that. I'm just drawing to your attention how these 2 guns lock. The Howa / Vanguard and the Weatherby Mark V. The bolt handles, I don't believe, are integral. This may be integral on the Mark V. They're so good at brazing now that it's very difficult to tell. You typically would see a brazing line here, but this could have been machined. It could also be a casting. And on the Vanguard, I also can't say. But it doesn't really matter, because I haven't seen any Vanguards where the bolt handle came off, or Weatherby Mark V's. I'd be very surprised. The Mark V has a tremendous contact surface with the bolt body. The safeties are typical on both firearms. I don't think there's any need to go into the details. They're not known to be faulty in any way. They both are positive safeties and work fine. And the triggers are good as well, which I mentioned. So in comparing the rifles, obviously the Mark V is a more expensive to make action. It's a much larger action. It's a much heavier action. The diameter of the bolt is a lot greater. And of course, Roy Weatherby wanted to have these lugs recessed so the bolt would move smoothly as if there were no lugs. On the Vanguard, the presumably Japanese designers stuck with a conventional Mauser design, again with an extractor and then an ejector in the bolt face. Which rifle is better? Well, I guess you would have to say there's a lot more steel and a lot more work in the Weatherby Mark V. Accuracy wise, the 240 Weatherby, for some reason that I own, is exceptionally accurate. I was shooting the 338 Lapua, but I didn't shoot it that much. And anyway, all of these shows where they shoot one gun, it's not really scientific method, and it's just me shooting. So you can watch me shooting one gun. You'd have to shoot 1,000 guns in a machine rest and then decide which is more accurate. But either one is fine for hunting purposes. So overall, all I can say is that the Howa/Vanguard is an exceptional value, and I think I've said this on another video. I view it as the best value on the gun market. I can't see any deficiencies. The only way I can explain the low prices is efficiency of mass production. They must make so many of these that they can offer them at the prices they do. And the Mark V, you're probably paying a bonus for owning a Weatherby Mark V, and if you buy one with, you know, the Claro walnut stock and the check ring, of course there's a lot of work and money that goes into the finishing of the wood and so forth. And you can buy those premium Magnum calibers, 460 and 340, and they've introduced a whole bunch, including a 6.5 recently, and they're all uniquely high velocity. You get 200 or 300 feet per second, maybe more. I'm sure there are people out there that are watching that know every Weatherby cartridge by heart, which I don't know. But the request was to compare the two, so there's the comparison. Not that different, but at the same time different enough to justify different prices. But I totally understand why Weatherby went with the Howa. This is a great rifle, and for the price, and he offered the 240. I picked up one in 6.5 Creedmoor. You know, it's one of those ones where they could probably double the price and still sell a lot of guns, but for some reason they keep the prices low, maybe counterbalancing the Mark V line. Anyhow, I hope that's sufficient, and for the people out there that are Weatherby lovers, I can understand it. There's an appeal to them, and they're kind of viewed as an exclusive gun, but at the same time, the fact that they offer the Vanguard means that the Mark V alone wasn't enough. They had to have something, let's say, more common. So that's about it, and as always, thanks very much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.